Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to dive into one of the oldest but most powerful frameworks for understanding our own minds, the Four Noble Truths. Now, don't let the name fool you. This isn't just some dusty ancient philosophy. It's an incredibly practical guide for dealing with the stress, the anxiety, and just the general messiness of being human. So let's get started. Probably the best way to think about this whole thing is to imagine you're at a doctor's office. It's a really logical four-step process. First, the doctor has to figure out the illness, right? Then, they find out what's causing it. Third, and this is crucial, they confirm that there's a cure. And finally, they write the prescription. It's a clear, straightforward process for addressing what's wrong. So where did this diagnosis even come from? Well, the story starts with a prince named Siddhartha Gautama. And this guy was born into some serious luxury. He was totally shielded from all the tough parts of life. But one day, he snuck out and saw sickness, old age, and death for the first time, and it just completely shattered his world. It sparked this huge question in his mind. There has to be a way out of all this suffering, right? So Siddhartha just walked away from his palace, from his whole life, and spent years searching for an answer. He tried everything. And then one day, while meditating under a Bodhi tree, it all just clicked. He had this profound awakening. He became the Buddha, which literally means the awakened one. And his big insight wasn't some mystical vision, it was a crystal clear understanding of how our minds work. And this is what he figured out, boiled down into four really elegant truths. Using the original terms, he first identified Dukkha, the reality that there is suffering. Then he pinpointed its origin, Samudāya. He realized it could actually end, which is Nirodha. And finally, he mapped out Magga, the path to get there. This is our roadmap for the rest of this explainer. Okay, let's start with that first truth, dukkha, or suffering. Now, I know what you're thinking, this sounds like a total downer, but it's not meant to be pessimistic at all. It's just about being honest and realistic. A doctor can't treat an illness until they acknowledge that it's there. This is that first essential step. And you really have to get the feel for this word, dukkha. It's way more than just stubbing your toe. It's this deep, fundamental sense of unsatisfactoriness. It's that vague background feeling that things just aren't quite right. It comes from the fact that everything changes, nothing lasts. Even the best moments have this little shadow of knowing they're going to end. So to make it even clearer, you can think of dukkha as having three main flavors. First, there's the obvious stuff. Physical suffering like getting sick or growing old. Second, there's the suffering of change, that sting you feel when something good ends or you lose something you care about. And the third one is the most subtle, existential suffering. It's that low-grade hum of anxiety that just comes with being alive. All right, so we've identified the ailment. The next logical question is, what's causing it? And more importantly, can we actually do something about it? That's what the second and third truths are all about. The second truth, Samudāya, points its finger directly at the root cause, a powerful force called tanha. It's an old word that basically means thirst, craving, or a deep-seated attachment. And here's the key insight. Our suffering isn't just random bad luck. It's actively fueled by this constant, restless search for satisfaction outside of ourselves. Tanha is the fuel for the fire. And this craving, this tanha, is sneaky. It shows up in a few different disguises. There's sensual craving, wanting that next delicious meal or great song. Then there's the craving for existence, that deep human urge for things to last forever, for us to have a permanent self. And, get this, there's even a craving for non-existence, that desire to just escape, to numb out, to make the bad feelings go away. And all of this leads to the third noble truth, Nirodha, which is basically the good news. It's a message of profound hope. It says that because our suffering has a very specific cause, this thing called craving, it also has a cure. A complete end to suffering is actually possible. The state of freedom, where the fire of craving is put out, is what's known as nirvana. So what does that freedom even feel like? Well, imagine you've been walking around your entire life carrying a ridiculously heavy backpack. You're so used to it, you don't even notice the strain anymore. Liberation, or Nirodha, is the feeling of finally setting that backpack down. It's this incredible sense of peace that comes when all that struggle and resistance just stops. Okay, so if dukkha is the illness, tanha is the cause, and nirodha is the cure, then what's the actual prescription? How do we do it? Well, that brings us to the fourth and final truth, Magga, the path. And this isn't about blind faith. It's a set of real, practical things you can do to find that freedom for yourself. And that prescription is the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, don't let the name intimidate you. It's not like 8 steps you have to perfectly climb in order. It's more like 8 spokes of a wheel, all working together to keep you moving forward. They're usually grouped into 3 main areas. Wisdom, which is all about seeing things clearly, ethical conduct, which is about living in a way that doesn't cause harm to yourself or others, and mental discipline, which is all about training your attention. Now, I know what you might be thinking. An 8-fold path sounds like a lot of work. But the beautiful thing about this whole framework is how you can apply it in your actual, messy, everyday life. This isn't about becoming some perfect saint. It's just about having a gentle, helpful direction to move in. So here's how you can start, right now. First, just start to notice dukkha in the small moments. When you're stuck in traffic and getting frustrated, just acknowledge it without judging yourself. Okay, here's that feeling. Second, see the cause. Gently ask yourself, what am I clinging to right now? Is it the idea that you shouldn't be late? Third, just for a second, taste freedom. For one single breath, see if you can let go of that resistance. And fourth, walk gently. You don't have to do it all at once. Just pick one small thing, like trying to speak more kindly for the rest of the day. At the end of the day, this whole thing invites us to make a really radical shift in our perspective. Instead of seeing our frustration or our anxiety as these enemies we have to fight, we can start to see them as invitations. They're like little messengers pointing directly to the places where we're stuck, where we're clinging. And that is the real takeaway here. The path to finding peace isn't about trying to control everything and everyone around us so we're never uncomfortable. It's about changing our relationship with our discomfort. It's about developing the inner wisdom to see life clearly, just as it is. So I'll just leave you with this one question to ponder. In those small moments of wanting, of resisting, of fighting with reality, what happens if, just for a second, you let go?